sorry. I played the wrong intro. That's my bad.
Interesting.
Kelsey was like,
Imagine,
am I
wait.
gonna have to play trivia? No, that's next week. No, sorry, Kelsey.
I literally was like, "Oh my god, is this an early birthday present?" I could surprise, you're in a
Oh
trivia
my god,
match.
imagine. Next year. Don't remember this, because next year for your birthday, I'm gonna surprise you and I'm gonna make you fight someone for trivia for fun. I'll have like Zach or Matt on and we'll just see how it goes. Like that'd be really
That would
fun.
be
Just a
so
surprise
funny,
trivia.
actually.
I guess we could tease now. Our tournament final is gonna be next week. Yeah, we have it scheduled on the docket, so I'm excited for that. Kelsey and I are gonna talk off air about that. But yeah, you'll be seeing that next week. This week though, we have other stuff to attend to. A very easy week this week. Not a lot of news compared to last week with Comic-Con, but we are going to be talking about D23, what's new with films, some animation, and even some theme park stuff. And then we'll also talk about our top 10 MCU quotes or Marvel quotes. MCU, right?
MCU.
All right, good. I only went MCU, and I'm thinking of one big omission if we were to go with Marvel proper. Just most iconic MCU quotes, I believe, was the prompt. But I'm very. Well, what are you giving me that face for?
No, because I'm just trying to guess which one you want, and the first one that came to mind is only 2 words with a question mark at the end.
No, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
No, mine is a proverb that is said by an uncle of a character that it might be said in No Way Home.
Oh.
Well, that's the one I thought about, but I was like, do they actually say it in No Way Home or not? We'll get there, I guess, when we get there.
No,
But
she says it.
she does. Okay. Well, I couldn't remember if it was the exact word spoken. My whole list was like, if I can think of it off the top of my head, it's going on a list. If I can't, I'm not putting it on, because in my
Yeah.
opinion, most iconic is like the ones that you could just say without being told and did work perfect. If there were some where I like quoted and then I looked it up and it was a different quote, I didn't put it on the list because it means it wasn't iconic enough if I got any words wrong. That's how I approached it. Do we want to start with that or end with that? We'll probably end with that, right? We should start with the
Yeah.
D23 stuff. Okay. So before we get
Yeah.
into the news though, there's some big news. Our friend here, my sister, Kelsey, is turning 26. 6?
6. Oh my
26.
god,
Sorry.
please don't age me.
I don't know why I'm saying your age anyway in public. I'm so sorry for sharing that with everyone.
It's all right.
But yeah, she could rent a car last year, but she could still rent a car this year. It's exciting.
Mhm.
Happy birthday, Kels. This is actually
Thank you,
airing
Dill.
on your birthday, which I think
On
has
my
never
day of
happened.
birth.
Yeah, we should have planned something more exciting for this. I'm sorry. I didn't even think of that. I was like, oh, this is going to air on your birthday. If I had known that, we would have done something
Hey,
more extravagant.
we're talking about my favorite thing today, quotes. So
Yeah,
it's
that's true.
already a birthday present
Okay,
for me.
good. How was your weekend? I mean, we spent all of Saturday together. Kelsey had a party bus with a bunch of friends. It was really fun. We went down to the Jersey Shore. She surprised us, aka kidnapped us, and didn't tell us where we were going, which kind of
Yeah.
added more fun and novelty to the day. We rode a lot of roller coasters. I drank a little too much to be riding those roller coasters, but we had a
Yeah.
great time. Kels, how are you feeling after a big, exhausting but very hopefully fulfilling birthday weekend?
Dill, that claw ride that we rode together really messed me up. I did
Oh yeah,
not know we were going to go upside down that many times. And I was
yeah.
literally like, oh my God, I should
Because it's
not
one
have
of those.
done
It's
2
so
green
it's like
tea shots before this.
yeah. It's got like a pendulum, but it also kind of spins like a claw, and then it kind of just does the whole like the whole
Yeah.
circle.
The
Which I
360.
was not prepared for. I told the kids across from me, I was like, close your mouths.
Yeah.
As a
We
joke, but
were,
yeah,
yeah.
not good. Not good.
But
But
otherwise,
fun.
it was
Yeah.
a very fun day. I'm glad everyone had a good time. I had a blast. That's all I want to do was like just like ride some rides, be on the Jersey Shore, and we all had a good time.
Yeah, we didn't meet Snooki or the situation, unfortunately, because that's usually where they hang out. That is
We'll get
the
him
Jersey
next
Shore
year.
from the show. So yeah, we'll get him next year. Snooks, come on out. What was the best thing you watched this week, Kelsey? You watching much, or was it mostly just like birthday prep? Or if it's something related to Picture This, do not speak because we don't want to know your opinion yet on those. But have you
Oh,
watched anything this week that is worth letting everyone know about?
Still, I can't think of anything
That's
really
okay.
because
No, I mean
I've
it's
just
been a
been
busy,
I
busy week.
prepped all last week for my birthday.
Yeah.
Like it was like I was training for a marathon,
It
truly.
always
Like
is. It
my
always is with Kelsey. If
yeah.
anyone ever has the privilege of being part of a Kelsey birthday party, which I don't know if any of our viewers, listeners who are listening will ever get that opportunity, but if you do, it is quite an event. It is the event of the summer for me. So I'm always looking forward to it, no
Me
matter
too.
where, no matter who with. It is always a great old time. And it's always fun because I don't know how many people know this, but my birth sister is born turned a day before. So, well, 3 years later and a day before, but you know what I mean, 5 years
Yeah,
later,
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
But she's on August 11th, so we can, and she's turned 21 this weekend. So it's exciting. 20 fun for Nina. Past and previous guests, past and future guests. That's what I should say. On draft day, Nina Randazzo turned 21 this weekend. So shout out Nina, and then my sister from another Mister right here turned 26. So it was a big fun weekend. It's always fun celebrating the two most important women next to my mother, her grandmother.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to put that out there. No offense.
I'm like, "Oh
But
my god, I'm
no,
in
no.
the top 5 of Dill's most important
I mean,
women?
like,
That's
we'll,
amazing."
we'll say you're at least like in the ballpark of top 10, 15. Like I don't know how many
Yeah.
relatives I would legally have to put above you, but
Right, right, right.
no, but
I
like
got it.
yeah, I mean, yeah, sisters take the cake, the Monica to my Ross. But it's always a fun weekend because it's like that celebration of two things. It's like a double whammy every year, which is always fun because Nina's are a lot more like, family gathering, maybe a drink or two, and then Kelsey's like, "You're gonna die! You're gonna drink so much," and it's always like a fun little like, like this year, yours was before hers, so it was nice to kind of like
Yeah.
have today as like a calming day after your party.
Yeah.
But sometimes yours is after, so it's like I like that's almost like a warm up for yours. It's always a fun time. It's like it's a great time. And this year was the same weekend as the end of the Olympics, and we're also getting all this Marvel news, and we got like a new Marvel movie in theaters that just crossed $1 billion. Like this is a big eventful birthday weekend, so
Mhm.
it's fun. But the best thing I watched, M Night Shyamalan's new film Trap is just so fun.
Mm.
Go see it if you haven't. It's so fun. It's one of those movies that if you're going in expecting realism or great dialogue, you're not going to get it because it's M Night Shyamalan.
Okay.
But I think if you can embrace that and like embrace the fact that he talks weird because he's a serial killer and he doesn't know how to communicate, it makes the dialogue a lot more palatable. And if you can just
Mm.
buy all the ridiculousness, all the twists and turns, it's a grand old time. So I would definitely recommend it if you just want like a fun hour and a half at the movies, maybe 2 hours, to just kind of turn your brain off and just enjoy this crazy Hitchcockian, twisty turny movie made by one of the best. I highly recommend it. I also watched his daughter's film, The Watchers, that came out a few months ago with Dakota
Mhm.
Fanning. Not as big a fan of
Mhm.
that one, but I did a
Mm.
review of the two of them together. So it was fun. It was fun.
Yeah, I
Have you?
saw you did a double feature review of those,
Yeah,
Jill. I haven't gotten around to them though, so I haven't watched it yet,
yeah, yeah.
but
That's fair.
I didn't hear great things about either of those films, so I
Really?
wasn't super inclined.
Yeah.
But
Well,
if you
Trap is
say
very
it's a
interesting
good
because there's
time,
so
I'll give
many.
it a chance.
Yeah, and there's so many people like, especially like when I think of like film talk, I think of like Cinema Joe and Kit Laser and all that. They love Trap. They're like loving
Love
Trap.
Cinema Joe.
So I felt validated there. But sometimes I disagree with them. So it's like I want to
Yeah,
work my way into that crowd. Like my dream would be to like be one of them.
of
Like that would be
course.
the dream. So
You
if
can
anyone
definitely
has
do
those
it.
connections, George out there
Cinema Joe,
too.
hit
Yeah,
us up.
Cinema Joe, Straw Hat Goofy, all of them are all great. But and there are some that aren't, but that's film talk for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're all fans of Trap, so I feel validated in that way.
Okay.
But
Good to know.
should we get into D23 real quick? Just because I
Yeah,
feel like it is a
let's talk about it.
real quick type thing because I'll admit I think because Comic Con gave us so much stuff that we also didn't know was coming. I think it was a lot less impactful D23's announcements.
Mhm.
But I do think if we hadn't gotten Comic Con, it would have hit a lot harder because everything we got D23 was information I knew was coming. It was more so showing us more of that information we knew was coming. There was only one
Mhm.
really huge reveal that we were all kind of like, "Whoa, we didn't know that." But it's like I don't know. I think they saved all their big reveals for like Pixar. Like we got the announcement of Incredibles 3, which no one knew was going to happen. Disney itself had a
Mm.
lot of good announcements. The parks had some crazy announcements. They're making a Monsters Inc. land. A lot of really interesting things. I know, right, Kels? We could like go into all of that. But in terms
Yeah.
of Marvel, I think it was pretty tame, and they saved it for last, which also felt a little weird, just because it's like that was
Mm.
kind of the most tame of the announcements. I think that and Star
Mhm.
Wars didn't feel like we were getting a ton. But overall, just grand scheme, how do you feel about everything you read about or saw?
Good. We got another look at Agatha all along, which
Yeah,
is
that's
really
been the biggest one
exciting.
that is most accessible because it's coming soonest. So we got like
Yeah.
a full trailer for that. We also got a really cool like musical performance, which some of these things are
Yeah.
done in person that we don't get access to, but because people are there, we see them all. But we got a
Right.
whole big musical number, which makes me excited because they're really leaning into
Yeah.
the goofiness of it. It feels like it's going to be like a hocus pocus in the MCU,
Mhm.
which I'm excited for because also Patty LuPone in the MCU. Why would she ever sign up? And now we kind of know why because she's singing a lot. She's really eating into the hamminess of it. So.
Mhm. We got a new look at Harrison Ford as Red Hulk in Brave
Yeah,
New World.
yeah, still
Um
jury's still out on that one, or are you more sold on it? Are you more fearful of it? What are your thoughts on it?
I mean, I'm kind of into it, Dill. I'm
Okay.
feeling really optimistic about Brave New World. At least maybe I'm trying to be.
Mhm.
Just because I think it looks really cool based off of what we saw from the trailer. I think it's definitely looking very like spy, government
Yeah.
thriller type. And I
Yeah.
think like we've always said here that the best thing that the Marvel movies do is when they take a genre and they just kind of like superheroify it. And
Yeah.
if they just make a generic superhero film, like that never like bodes well for them. So I like how they're taking on like a whole tone and an aesthetic with Brave New
Yeah.
World.
Yeah.
The only thing that I'm slightly disappointed on is that we didn't get really anything new regarding Daredevil Born Again.
Yeah, well, actually, okay. So for this was new for me. I didn't realize that. From what I remember, I had heard Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio were coming back. I didn't realize that Deborah Ann Wool, Eldon Hansen, and John Bernthal were confirmed. So that was one of the big reveals for me
Mm,
because they all came out
yeah.
to introduce the trailer, and there was a first trailer, which was cool. And then the other big piece
Oh,
of news.
okay.
This was what I didn't know is that they confirmed that there would be a season 2 as well. Like they confirmed, they're like,
Mhm.
we're working on a second season already, which means they have really big faith in it. The teaser was just a bunch of like strung together little clips and images. It was something that was not publicly accessible unless you were like
Yeah.
in the inside on the inside of it. But it looked very gritty, very dark, almost looks darker than the Netflix, which I really think after
Mm.
Daredevil and Wolverine, or sorry, Deadpool and Wolverine, I think they are now willing to go a little riskier and a little darker, especially because their fan base, if you think about it, the people who were kids with Iron Man are now grown adults. So like, yes, they're
Yeah.
getting new fans here and there, but I think a lot of right now for Marvel has been about trying to cling on to the fans that we already had and not necessarily try to reach out and get new fans, but rather keep the fans you had. It's almost like it's a very conservative approach in a way, but it is
Mhm.
that idea. It's the same thing with Robert Downey Jr., which we talked ad nauseum about last week. It's like this is a way to say, "Hey, fans, we see you. We know what you love. Here it is." And I think that's what we got from Daredevil, at least some of the clips. But the big surprise for me was John Bernthal returning as a Punisher. I think that's great. We haven't watched
Mhm.
season 3 yet. We will by the end of this year. I will make that known. It will happen. But I think it was exciting. I think actually that was one of the more surprising things for me was just the fact that we did get confirmation that the whole trio would be back and we would get Vincent D'Onofrio. And in the trailer, it looks like Kingpin and Daredevil are working together, which is a very interesting
Ooh.
concept. And it kind of introduced this new villain of the White Tiger, which I don't know much about at all. So I think Daredevil actually was one of the more interesting things for me personally, just because I guess I didn't know that like John Bernthal was coming back and all these people were coming back. I thought maybe Deborah Ann Wool and Eldon Hansen were going to be like cameos, if anything, because they
Mm.
weren't in the initial cast announcement. So it's nice that they're really like leaning into it and saying, no, we want to like build this legacy that we know of Daredevil. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, another surprise that I forgot about that was even coming, and it's actually coming like very soon. It's coming at the beginning of next year, which is Ironheart. I had no idea that was still happening. And then Ryan
Oh,
Coogler, Ryan
yeah.
Coogler comes out, who I didn't know was also doing it. I knew he had obviously introduced Riri Williams in Wakanda Forever, but he comes out to introduce it, and I'm like, wait, Ryan Coogler's doing the show, and then they bring out the whole cast: Dominique Thorne as Riri Williams. We also get Anthony Ramos, Lyric Ross, Alden Ehrenreich, who I forgot was in it, and Regan Elia all came out on stage and they like showed also like a little mini teaser for that as well. And I think it kind of leans into the whole like, very technology um
Mm.
aspect of it. But yeah, I was surprised that that was still on the docket, let alone so soon, and that they were almost kind of like done with it and ready to get it rolling. So that was really
Mm.
exciting. Did you remember that Ironheart was even happening still? I hadn't heard of it in months, so I figured it was kind of like that and Armor Wars are the two that I haven't heard from, and we still don't know much about Armor Wars now. But yeah, it's like I was very surprised to see a lot of good Ironheart stuff.
Sorry.
Sorry, I caught you in the
Um,
middle of a
n
sneeze.
no, 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 my parents are just, like, yelling things at
Okay.
me from the
It's okay.
distance,
You're good. You're good. You're good.
just, like, living at
Yeah,
home,
it's birthday weekend. Yeah,
live
it's a
my
busy
best
time.
life. Um, yeah, Dill, no, but you're right, though, it's kinda been hard to keep track of, like, things that they've scrapped and things that they've renamed and all that, like, we've been in such a weird transitionary phase with the MCU
Mhm,
right now, so yeah, for a second, I really thought that this whole show might have been scrapped, but I'm
mhm.
very pleased to hear that it's Ryan Coogler who's gonna be behind it
Yeah,
because
I had no idea,
after
and they didn't make a big reveal about it either, which means that, like, that
yeah,
must have been public knowledge that, like, you and I both just didn't either we heard and we forgot, or we just, like, didn't
yeah,
put it together maybe because she was introducing Wakanda Forever, we didn't put that together that he would also be making her show, but it makes sense
right.
considering
Yeah,
how much
for sure.
Wakanda they're gonna put into it, yeah. Very
So,
cool.
yeah, that makes me even more excited than I already was
Mm,
to dive into the
yeah.
character of Riri Williams
Yeah.
because everything Ryan Coogler touches turns to gold, so
Absolutely. And the last thing we got in terms of movies was obviously Fantastic Four first steps. They are filming it now, so none of them were there, but they did kind of video call in, and we kind of got a first glimpse of the costume Joseph Quinn was wearing. It's very like slick white. It's kind of like what we saw in the cartoon drawing, but it's got like the blue
Mm,
and then the big F. Like it is kind of hitting those almost like Pan Am, like old 50s, 60s style. Or I guess 70s it might be. I don't remember what decade it's set in, but like very crisp, clean, like almost futuristic, like we're going to space vibes. So we just saw them in their costumes, but really nothing else came of that. We did hear the actual theme. Michael Giacchino finished the theme of it, like what the actual
mm.
theme is going to sound like. We can't play it here for obvious reasons because of copyright, but if you haven't heard it, it's really, really spectacular. It just has that like kind of like Epcot feel where like if you're at Epcot it's like we're going to the moon and the stars. It's like
Yeah,
got that
yeah,
like
yeah.
vibe. You're like like it's got a real cool vibe to it. I think this is going to be one of the more iconic themes because the MCU really doesn't have a lot of like good themes. I feel like other movies do that better, kind of like the Batman, Wonder Woman. But I feel like for the end, like Incredibles, which also is Michael Giacchino. But I feel like the MCU, the only ones that are really iconic is like Guardians and maybe like Spider-Man. But I couldn't even hum you Spider-Man's theme right now, like the MCU Spider-Man theme. You know what I mean? Like, does any Marvel MCU project have like a definitive theme? Really?
I mean, like,
Like
the
Guardians is like the dun 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 da da dun.
Oh!
You know what I mean? But,
Yeah,
like, I
yeah,
can't think of any,
yeah.
like, other, like, really distinct themes. A lot of them have, like, songs, like, Thor: Ragnarok uses Immigrant Song, but,
Right,
um
right, right.
so I think this is cool, like, that
I
Fantastic
mean,
Four
the
is gonna kind
Avengers
of have
have their Avengers theme.
oh, yeah, duh, okay, that's a big one.
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, okay,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's a fair point. That's, like, one of the only ones, though. So I think that's
That's
cool that,
about it.
Michael Giacchino did you listen to that theme yet or no?
No, I
Okay, yeah,
haven't.
it's really, really sweet,
I
so
gotta
I
give it a
can't wait for you to
listen.
hear it. Yeah, and then we also got, like, a little snippet, I think, of Laura Cartman's score for Brave New World as well, because they did, like, a whole
Mm.
Music of Marvel panel, but, and then we got the song, The Battle of the Witches Road, which is, the Kristen Anderson Lopez and Robert Lopez song for Agatha All Along. But that's it for the movies. As for the parks, obviously we haven't been to all these parks, so this doesn't really mean a ton for us, but Shanghai Disneyland announced that they are doing an all new coaster debuting that is a Spider Man thrill attraction, finds Peter Parker in a bit of a tight spot, and you will join him on a high speed journey to get out of trouble. And these are the images. It looks very fun. Spider Man
Mm.
coaster. Hong Kong Disneyland is doing this is really cool. Stark Expo is also expanding at Hong Kong Disneyland with an all new attraction. Tony Stark invites his friend Peter Parker to showcase some of his inventions. This catches the attention of one of Spidey's most formidable villains, which they don't tell you. Oh no, it is Doc Ock. It's in the picture. As guests try to help Spider-Man protect the new tech, they might get caught in the middle of the action. It seems like a Tower of Terror style drop ride where
Mm.
Spidey is holding you by the web and Doc Ock is pulling you back with the tentacles.
Oh.
So that's kind of the vibe of that. So if we ever have the chance to go to Hong Kong, that would be a really cool ride.
Wow,
Hopefully,
that's really
um,
cool.
yeah. California Adventure, which is where Avengers Campus is. This is like the big one for Americans. They're announcing that it's going to have a huge expansion. The Avengers Infinity Events is a multi world adventure experience where recruits will chase down King Thanos after he steals technology that allows the Avengers to jump between worlds. Guests will
Mm.
travel to iconic locations like Asgard, Wakanda, and New York City, and they might even cross paths with some familiar faces. So this seems like one of those like interactive like rides where there's like a video almost. That's the kind of
Mhm.
vibe I'm getting. And then you have like the King Thanos on the bottom there. So that looks kind of
Mm.
fun. But the big announcement is that Robert Downey Jr. is returning as Tony Stark for a ride called the Stark Flight Lab, where you can feel like a superhero yourself. Guests will sit in two-person pods and deploy to a test station where a robot arm will grab each pod and whirl it around in simulated flight. So that
Mm.
sounds fun. There's no picture for that, but they did confirm Robert Downey Jr. will come back to play the role of Iron Man for all the videos and all that stuff, for all the interactivity of
Mm.
that ride. So yeah, he's not leaving the role. So anyone who's like, oh, he should come back as Iron Man, well, you're getting your wish there. Any thoughts on all those ride announcements for Marvel, Kels? I know we are not
What
close to any of them, but we will eventually be going to California Adventure soon. So
what park is the Tony Stark ride happening at?
that's in California, so that's going to be at the
Oh,
California
okay.
Adventure. But I don't know when it's coming, and that's the thing too. I think by the time we go, it might not be there yet, but maybe we'll have to delay our trip until it is there. But we are gonna have to start planning that soon. But any other
Yeah.
thoughts on that? I think the Spider-Man drop ride is the coolest idea, personally.
Yeah. That's really cool because then you can be like literally I feel like every Spider-Man movie has that moment where they
Yeah,
literally like try to save someone who's falling and they get the web on the wrist or the
yeah.
body in Gwen
Yeah, it's gonna
Stacy's
be
case
cool if
and
it's like you're in the whole tram and it's like
yeah,
he's like,
yeah,
no,
yeah.
yeah, I think it's gonna be so cool. And
Yeah.
lastly, the last thing we got at D23 was the Marvel animation panel. This was actually one of the more fun ones. I didn't get to see any of the sneak peeks yet because it happened today, as the time we're recording this on August 11th. I didn't have time to watch them. But we did get exclusive sneak peeks at the upcoming shows. What If season 3, which they did
Mm.
confirm would be the last season. That this is it.
Oh,
So, actually, a critic, William Bibbiani, made a funny tweet. He was like, "All 27 possibilities," as a joke, because the whole thing is that you can do endless possibilities, but they're stopping at
right.
3 seasons. So, maybe season 2 didn't perform as well, but they still had ideas
Mm.
for 3, so they're gonna just cap it at that. Maybe. Thoughts on that? Are you upset that it will be ending after 3 seasons? Do you think it's run its course, or do you think why? Why? My question is, like, why end it? It's cheap to make, and you could just keep doing them.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. That's weird. Maybe they're just trying to make room for other projects.
Maybe. One of those other projects, obviously X-Men 97, season 2 is done and being edited, and season 3 is on the horizon. So they're really going hard on X-Men 97, as they should.
I'm
Looks amazing.
really excited for
Yeah.
that.
Eyes of Wakanda, which Ryan Coogler also teased, is going to be an animated series following, I think, other Wakandan characters. So it's not about T'Challa or Black Panther or any of that. I don't
Mm.
know much about that show, but that was something I didn't know was coming. But I think it had been announced, but they showed some footage from it. Marvel Zombies, we did get like our first confirmation that it is happening because there's a little bit of footage of that. And then the
Mm.
big like highlight of the panel was Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, which we're getting very soon. I think either the end of this year or early next year. Which almost has like a 50s cartoon kind of style of animation, like almost like Dennis the Menace. But like
Mm.
it looks really, really interesting. And the big reveal was that Coleman Domingo is going to be voicing Norman Osborn in that show. So does that take him off the table as our
Mm.
Magneto? Because we really wanted him as Magneto. Does that take him off the table? I'm not sure. But he will be Norman Osborn. Or does that make him the Norman Osborn of the MCU if they do it live action? I don't know.
I
So
don't know.
Coleman Domingo was like the big announcement there. And then Hudson Thames will be playing Peter Parker. But again, like shows we knew were coming, we're just getting little snippets of them. Like there wasn't any huge announcements. The biggest announcements: Daredevil is gonna have a season 2, and that John Bernthal has come back as Punisher, and that Coleman Domingo is Norman Osborn. That felt like really the only huge reveals. But any
Yeah.
thoughts on that animation panel? Any of those projects that you're most excited for, or least excited for?
I mean, like I said, X-Men 97, I'm definitely excited for that.
Mm.
I'm excited to get a new season of What If. I think it's a fun concept, and we got some good gems in season 2, so I don't understand why they would end it after 3.
Right.
Um,
Unless maybe they're trying to like do a bunch of spin-offs, maybe like maybe they have like a Kahori, right? That's her name, like
mm,
a spin-off
yeah,
planned, and they
Corey.
have like a spin-off planned about this character or that character. Like I'm wondering if maybe that's the avenue they're going to go in instead of following with What If. They're going to focus on a few of the What If characters they like, kind of like with Marvel Zombies, and instead just do like a spin-off for each of the projects they like. Well, like this is almost all their pilots for shows they want to do, and they're going to see which one lands. Maybe I don't know. Um, but I like it. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm upset we're gonna have to say goodbye to that series, but I hope they end
yeah.
strong. Any other D23 thoughts? I mean, there really isn't a ton of new stuff, but what's like your most excited anticipated project now? Is it still Fantastic Four? Is it Brave New World?
I mean,
Daredevil?
I'm really into Brave New World, but I think I'm also really excited for Agatha All Along. The new trailer that they released made it seem like a lot of fun.
Mhm.
And I'm really excited for this cast.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah. There you
it's
go.
it's all
So
exciting
D20,
stuff.
yeah, we don't have much else to say. Let's get into our top 10 though, because this is the most interesting list for me. Because as I said earlier, we're doing most iconic quotes, so not our favorite quotes. Because there's some quotes I put on this list that I love, but I know aren't like iconic. Um,
Yeah.
but like I thought about the most iconic quotes, and it really was like, what are the quotes that come to mind when I think of the MCU, and which quotes can
Mhm.
I quote without having to look them up? That's kind of what I'm going for. So I tried to like go through my brain of all the movies, all the characters, and like these 10 are the ones that kind of like I was most clinging on to. Um,
Yeah.
but Kels, did you have any criteria for your list and what how you would um assemble this list?
I mean, I definitely did the same thing that you did, Dill. I try to just think of things right off the dome. And funnily enough, I came up with 3. I thought I was going to think of 3. I came up with 10 just like right away. And then I was like, you know what? I think I'm just going to work with these 10. I'm not going to try to
Uh-huh.
think of more and then like narrow it down. I really just thought of 10. And then I was like, you know what? And now I'm just going to rearrange these in the order that I want them to
Right.
be.
Because if you think of 10 off the top of your head, those are probably the most 10 iconic because they're the ones that come to mind
Yeah.
first. They're the most instantly recognizable. It's not like your mind's gonna go for the deep cut first, you know what I mean? Unless it does
And
go
they're
for the deep cut first,
definitely,
then it's iconic to you and we can talk
yeah.
about it.
And they're definitely like a combination of like classics from like back in the day to like more like new age stuff as well.
Yeah. Do you have any
So
TV show quotes on your list? I don't think I have
I
any.
do.
Oh, you do? Okay,
I
cool.
do
So we'll have
actually.
to see. All right. I always like to end with you because you always have the better picks. So I'm gonna start. My number
Okay.
10 is from
Go
Captain
ahead.
America: Civil War. It's Underoos. I just think that is just a quote that
Mm.
when I think of Spider-Man, that's what I think of. I love the funniness, the hilarity of it because it's like basically like children's underwear, you know, joking because he's like a little kid and like you know
Yeah.
it's the first time a kid kind of joined the Avengers in a way or joined the
Yeah.
fight. It's also an instantly iconic moment, I think. And like when I think of Spider-Man, the first image I think of in the MCU is him like landing on the car with the shield
With the
and like getting
shield.
the shield. And I think of
Yeah.
that intro, like the Underoos, like that's what I associate with Spider-Man in this franchise. So I don't have any Spider-Man quotes. This was the only one because I think it is one of the ones that like I think of when I think of Spidey. It is number 10 though, because like I feel like if you were to just say it to anyone on the street, they might not know what you're talking about. But if you were to
Mm.
say it to a Marvel fan in that tone of voice too, Underoos, I think people would kind
Yeah.
of get it. I think they'd be like, ah, Spider-Man.
Oh, for sure.
But I don't know. Like it was 10 because of that. Like I don't think it's like quite a bit upper echelon, but in terms of 10
Yeah.
most iconic, I could think of this one. This is probably the most iconic quote from that movie for me. So I'm gonna go with that as my number 10.
Yeah, Dill. I was, newly getting into the MCU in 2016, but if there's one thing I remember from from the marketing from that movie, it is the shot of Spider-Man landing with the shield. Like that
Yeah.
is so
'Cause that was the end of the
vividly put
trailer
in
too.
my
Yeah.
brain. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I just remember that. I wasn't even that caught into like the whole MCU lore yet at that moment, but I knew that fans were freaking out because Spider-Man was officially joining. So that's a really good pick to start us
Cool.
off.
What's your number 10, Kels?
My number 10 is actually a quote from Age of Ultron, which is actually where I think like it's a Captain America quote. And it's actually when Cap was kind of like, he's like actually strangely kind of funny in Age of Ultron. He kind of has like his own little quips in it every
Mhm.
now and again. Like it's definitely because, in the first Avengers, he's very like stoic, and the quippy one is definitely Tony. But I think Tony kind of rubbed off on him between Avengers 1 and 2. So he has this great little line where he's talking to everyone on the intercom and he says, sorry, I have to find it. Um, if you, oh, you get hurt, hurt him back. You get killed, walk it off.
Yeah. I love it.
And I just like that line a lot because it's like it's intense, but it's also funny. And it's also funny because of how intense it is. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, like he's
And
got
that,
good quips. When I think of that film and him, I think of like language.
yeah.
That's what I think of. But again, it kind of
Hmm.
adds to that whole idea of like him just being a little snarky and a little funny, which you
Yeah.
don't normally get from him in the earlier phases. So, or the first phase. Great
Mm-hmm.
pick. Yeah, I didn't think of it, but it is a good, especially if you're in that movie and you're thinking of that movie and you watch that movie, that bit definitely stands out. Um, Number 9, also a Captain America quote, Captain America Winter Soldier quote, which kind of becomes like a more like bigger Avengers quote, if you will. It's used in other movies. But the
Mm.
reason it's iconic is because it is the first line spoken during the portal sequence, and it is the first line spoken in Winter Soldier, which is "on your left," which I think is just such an iconic quote because it's not just in that movie. It's a funny bit, Winter Soldier, but in the end, when you don't know if they're going to survive or not, and then you just hear "on your left," and then he comes soaring out. Like that's an iconic moment, and it harkens back to
Mm-hmm.
that iconic moment. So now, when you watch that moment in Winter Soldier, it means more because what you saw in the future. So I think "on your left" is like Sam's quote, and it just kind of defines
Mm-hmm.
that relationship really well. The only thing is, again, like I think if you were to say "on your left" in a public setting, I don't necessarily know if people associate that with the MCU or if it's just like "on your left." You know, it's not as MCU unique, but it is an iconic
Yeah.
MCU line nonetheless. So that's
Ah,
my number
Dill, that is so good. I'm so
9.
disappointed that I didn't think of that
My
one
picks are
myself.
so chalk. Like every single one of my picks is not an obscure quote. in the slightest. It's like the
Yeah,
most
yeah,
basic.
yeah.
But I think that's kind of what my criteria was. Like, what is the most basic quotes? And on
Mi
your left is one of them.
mine are pretty basic. Mine are
Yeah.
pretty basic too.
Yeah. What's your
No,
number
I
9?
like that moment a lot. And don't forget, even at the end of Winter Soldier, like
It
Steve
happens
still
again. Yeah.
makes a callback when he wakes up in the hospital bed
Right.
and says, "On your left." And
Yeah. That's
that's
a good
such a
point.
good quote.
Good point.
Okay, so my number 9 is a nice iconic feminist quote from Captain Marvel. It's right at the end of the movie when she's fighting uh Yanrog, and she simply says, "I have nothing to prove to you."
That was my number 11. It was a close cut. It was a close cut
Okay.
only because like the 10 quotes I had just I thought were more iconic, but that
Yeah.
is such a good quote.
Yeah, had to throw a bone to my to the sisterhood, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just with the feminist messaging, yeah, it's so good. 8. This was actually the only crossover I had with our funniest list from week. I almost said last year, last month. Last week when
Mm,
we did our top 10 funniest moments. I think it's because it's like the one kind of like single dialogue quote that people still quote as a joke, which is why is Gamora. Is my
yeah.
number 8. I just think it's one of those
Yeah.
iconic lines. It's also because that movie's so dense and there's so much that happens. But if you were to say like, give me a quote from that movie, I guarantee 80% of the people would say that quote, or they would say like on your left, which is not even from that movie as much. Well, that's an end game anyway. But
That's
yeah,
yeah.
like I think it's like that where people would say, oh, why is Gamora? And if you were to say like, oh, what's your favorite like funny line in the MCU? I think a lot of people would say, why is Gamora? Like, I think that is also very encompassing of the quips and the funny nature of the MCU at times. So I wanted to also
Mhm.
represent my boy, Mr. DARX, Mr. Drax. So I'm very happy to have him on the list. At number 8,
Absolutely.
it's not in the top 7, but it's right
Yeah.
outside. Yeah,
Yeah, I have a different Infinity War quote
cool.
down the line coming up. It's actually my number 7 after my number
Okay.
8, which my number 8 I okay, I think it's more about the moment and less about the quote. So it's like I'm kind of cheating a little bit, but it's the moment in the last episode of Loki season 2
Hmm.
where he looks back at Sylvie and Mobius right before he's about to walk out onto the bridge, and he actually makes a callback to the first Thor movie when he looks at them and says, "For you, for all of us."
Aw,
So
nice.
very simple. It's like,
Hmm.
definitely not one that most people would think of. Maybe Stacy would think of it because she's such a big Thor fan.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I just really like that. Like I said, it's more about the moment than the quote. So I'm like,
Yeah.
kind of like bending my own rules here a little bit. But yeah, I just like that moment a lot. So I wanted
Nice.
to include it. And I
Yeah.
like that show a lot. So I wanted to
Yeah, it's a
represent it.
great show. Yeah, I couldn't think of any shows off the top of my mind. If I were to think of just show quotes, like I don't know if these are on your list, so I don't want to spoil them, but I would think of like some in the suit and like hey y'all, that would kind of be it, like
Yeah.
those are the sound bites that come to my head, but more so also for the
Yeah.
voice of it all. But yeah, for all of us, I think if you also watch that multiple times, it might stick after a little while as like an iconic moment. And when we see what Loki's overall purpose as the time god is, I think that'll definitely make even more of an impact with time. um
Mhm.
my number 7 is an Avengers Endgame quote. It is just the one where I think, like, honestly, with more rewatches, I think it became even more iconic, and that is "I love you 3000." Just
Mm.
iconic quote.
Mhm.
You say that, and people like now we're getting into the quotes where like if you say it, people immediately associate it with a character, a moment, a scene. Whereas like if you say
Yeah.
Underoos to someone, they might not know, but if you say "I love you 3000," they kind of know. Like that, I think that's where you start to get like more like universal, like, oh, I know what that's from. It's just such a sweet sentiment, like I love you this much, I love you this much, I love you 3000. Like I don't know, it's sweet, simple enough, it sticks,
Yeah.
it's a great moment. They call back to it a lot. It's a great
Mhm.
sentimental bit. So yeah, that's my number 7.
Yeah, Dill. In the year 2019, I don't think you could go to any corner of the internet without someone referencing "I love you 3000." I don't think you could go anywhere in public without someone referencing "I love you 3000." Which is so crazy to think about now, like cut to 2024, where RDJ's making his return back into the MCU when he made this grand exit where he like posted all this goodbye stuff and he was like, "Love you guys 3000." Like, don't spoil the end game. Like it was such a
Yeah,
huge deal.
yeah.
And could you imagine if like we went back in time to us sitting at the premiere of Endgame and we just went, "Oh, he comes back, by the way, as a villain, but he's back. He's back. Don't worry."
And in a
I would
ride. No.
I would literally be looking at my future self in tears, like, "What?" Because I was just a mess
Yeah,
at the end of that movie.
yeah, that's so good.
I definitely have that quote on my list as well.
Oh, okay.
It's
Sorry.
right. No, no, no. It's I mean, it's solid. It makes sense. Like that is I feel like the quote that defines all of the MCU. Also, the Tony and Morgan scenes in that movie, I think might be the best content in that movie
Oh, yeah, I
because
think especially with
they're
time. I
so
I think
perfect.
I think at the time, everyone was taking away the huge action moments, like the hammer with Cap
Mm.
and, like,
Mhm,
that
mhm.
ultimate portal stuff, but I think with
Yeah.
more time, as time has gone on and people have noticed that, like, it's a little bit of a bloated film. There's a lot going on, it's a little unnecessarily long. I think those are the moments, though, that people love, like, that first hour where everyone's kinda grieving and figuring out their own life post-snap, I think it ends up becoming the more interesting part of the film when you rewatch it over and over again. Like, I think if you were
Yeah.
to watch it in the moment, everyone's like, "The 3rd act's the best, the time travel stuff rocks," and then, like, the opening act is good, it's sad, whatever, but now I think if you rewatch it, it's like, the opening grieving shit is really, really powerful, time travel's fun,
Yeah.
the ending's fun. Like, I think it goes in
Yeah.
reverse order now, which is really interesting, but,
Yeah, just Tony Stark being a girl dad, like, really does something to my soul. I just wanna, like, watch that for, like, an entire season.
I love it.
Um, so my number 7, different Infinity War quote, k kind of a tragic quote, but also one that I felt like I couldn't escape when this movie came out, and it's Peter Parker's,
Oh.
"Mr. Stark, I don't feel so good."
You know what? I don't know why I didn't think of that. I probably because he comes back and he's not actually. If he
Yeah.
actually stayed dead after that, if they all like disappeared and never came back, that would definitely be on my list. I don't know why I didn't think of that. Mr. Stark, I don't feel so good. Hmm. Do you have any more
And
Infinity War quotes on your list, by the way?
no.
Okay, because I also thought of you should have gone for the head because that's also an iconic one.
Oh,
Um,
that
but yeah,
is an
no, Mr. Stark, I don't
iconic
feel so
quote.
good. Yeah, like everyone would also quote that all the time as well.
Mhm.
When that movie ended, like that's the one they would be like when he says that line, like
Yeah,
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 no, you're
yeah.
right. That's
"Mr.
the
Stark,
emotional.
I don't feel so good." And I'm pretty sure that whole sequence was improv between,
Yes. Yeah.
Tom Holland and RDJ.
Yeah, which also
So
makes it iconic, yeah, and I think it's also the moment you think of when you think of the snap, like a dialogue that encompasses the most iconic moment of the MCU, I would say. There you go, yeah.
"Mr. Stark, I don't feel so good."
Yeah, right? Um, alright, my number 6 is the longest quote on my list, but it is also one that I can
Okay.
still quote word for word, and I think it's tied to an iconic moment, but the moment is iconic because of the line, and that is, "That's my secret, Captain. I'm always angry." I love that line so much, because they're like,
Dill, we're like this today. I also
yeah,
have
then
that quote on my
okay, cool. We'll
list.
talk about it when we get to yours then. But yeah, I love
Okay.
that line so much.
You
My
said
favorite
you
character.
oh, this one's a little bit longer. I have a way longer quote
No,
on
I
my
know. Well,
list.
because again, my criteria was I have to be able to say it and say it dead word perfect for it to be iconic to me, and that was like the
Okay.
longest quote. Because there were some quotes which I was trying to say, and I was like, "Am I getting these words wrong?" And I did. And I was like,
Yeah,
"Ah,
yeah,
okay."
yeah.
But this one, I was like, "That's my secret, Captain. I'm always angry." In the moment, so good. Anyway, what's your 6?
My number 6 is a quote from y your favorite Guardians film? 2? Yeah,
Yeah,
2,
yeah,
that's what
yeah,
I
yeah.
thought.
Okay, yeah.
And it comes from Yondu, and it is, "He may have been your father, but he wasn't your daddy."
That's a good. Oh, there's 2
Very
Guardians
close.
quotes I can think of now. Shit,
Okay,
2
um,
Yondu quotes. I didn't even think of any of them. I can't believe I
my
didn't think of any of them.
the first Yondu quote that I thought of from Guardians was, I'm Mary
That's the
Poppins,
other one.
y'all,"
I can't believe I didn't
but
think of either of those.
I wanted to go for the more sentimental one,
Yeah.
so I went with the, he may have been your father, but he wasn't your daddy."
Damn it, that's such a good one. Yeah, it just didn't pop in my brain, which I guess doesn't fit my criteria. But like, yeah, that
Mm,
should have been on my list. That or Mary Poppins, y'all, because again, 2 iconic moments from a character who's not even like the main character of those movies, but still had a
yeah,
huge impact. Oh, it's so good, Gals. You're that's why you're the quotes girl.
thank you.
Um, all right, my 5 might be a shocker in terms of how low it is. A lot of people will probably put it number 1. The reason
Okay.
I have it at 5 is because it's not really said for a long time. When it is
Oh, okay.
said, it's iconic. It's Avengers Assemble.
Okay.
The reason
Cool,
I
cool,
put it at
cool.
number 5 though is because the top 4 I have are said so frequently in the MCU as like quotes of the
Mm,
MCU that I feel like they were more iconic. Avengers Assemble is only said once, and it's an iconic moment. It's an iconic build up, and it happens, and it's there, and it's great. But for me, the other four are just more iconic to me. This is an iconic line because it wasn't said and then it was said.
Yeah.
And they even play on it in Deadpool and Wolverine. But I don't know. I feel weird putting it at 5. I originally had it at my number 1, and I was like, no, these ones feel more iconic to the MCU as a whole. I also think because this was like a tagline for the movie, it's a little bit of a cheat because of that, because this was the what they used to market the film. They were like, Avengers Assemble. Avengers is coming in 2012. Whereas I think like him actually saying it is not as iconic as some of the others on my list. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Did you have this one
Yeah.
on?
No, Dill, respect that you even have it. I don't even have it on my list.
Oh.
I definitely thought of it. I just didn't think that it held really a lot of gravity to me, that I didn't deem it iconic enough. I
It's
definitely,
a great
this
moment
is more,
in the moment when you hadn't heard it
yeah,
yet. I get it. Yeah.
yeah. But oh my God, as you said that, I know you have a quote on your list that I am now realizing that I completely fumbled and do not have at all. And it is like literally the most iconic quote. And I'm so disappointed in myself, but it's
Yeah.
okay because I still like the quotes that I have.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right. So what's your
Anyway,
number?
my number 5 is I Love You 3000.
Okay. Cool. And do you have anything else to say about it?
No.
Okay. To our fans out there, we love you 3000. So that's your number 5. Sorry, I'm just like making a list, just so I can reference.
Oh, you're
Um,
making your list right now,
no, I'm
live
making
on
your
air?
list I'm making your list
Oh,
underneath,
okay.
just so I can compare at the end, and so I can rattle
Okay,
them off
cool, cool,
again at the
cool.
end, because that's what I forgot to do in the last episode. So, I was like, oh yeah, I can't recap because I didn't write all yours down. But my number 4 is another Cap quote. This is like his quote. It's "I can do this all day," which like
Incredible.
iconic because he says it in the first Avenger and then he says it again. It becomes like the moment of the musical in Hawkeye. Like it's
Mhm.
an iconic quote. The only thing that's keeping it from the top 3 is that the top 3 are so MCU specific, whereas you could say I can do this all day anywhere, and I'm sure people had said it. Like I'm sure someone in a
Yeah.
boxing ring has said I can do this all day at some point.
Like
It
it's a
doesn't.
real expression in
Yes,
life.
it's
Like,
not a
yeah.
Marvel specific expression like my top 3 are. That's why it was number 4 of the 4. Like the top 4 I think are all as equally iconic. But in the context of the MCU it's iconic, but outside the MCU I think it could just be said as its own quote, which makes it great, but not as MCU iconic. I got really picky with how I ordered it. But yeah, I can do this
Okay.
all day is iconic. There's a reason that is the line he sings in the musical. And
Yeah.
it's a great callback whenever he says it, kind of like On Your Left, but even more iconic than that. Was this one
Yeah.
on your list or no?
It was not on my list,
Okay.
definitely one that I thought of.
Mhm.
Didn't quite make the cut though. Probably like a number 11 or 12.
Sweet.
Um, and I also enjoy the moment in Endgame where past Cap says, "I can do this all day," and present Cap goes, "Yeah, I
Yeah, I
know."
know. Yeah, yeah. That's a good. Yeah.
Just so defeated, like, "Yeah, I
Well,
know."
that's how you know it's iconic too. Is if the fact
Yeah.
that the other characters have to comment and like roll their eyes at the quote, it's overdone. But overdone
Yeah.
to me is a good thing because it makes it more iconic. Like the top 3 here are so overdone, but like they're iconic because they're overdone. All right, go ahead. What's your number 4?
So, my number 4 is "That's My Secret, Cap, I'm always angry."
You had higher than me, and I love that you did. We didn't really get to talk about this much, but why do you love this
Yeah.
quote?
Um, I just love it because it's the first moment where we get to see Bruce Banner as the Hulk in the
Mhm.
Avengers, and there's just like this built up like mystery to him. It just like it says everything that you need to say about Bruce Banner as a character and how like complex he is, because he comes across that whole first chunk of that movie as this very like shy, like cool, calm, collected, nerdy scientist. And then all of a sudden he rides in on a motorcycle and he's like, actually, my blood is boiling 100% of the time. And I'm just going to let this rip now. And it's just like, it's just an iconic moment.
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing. I think it's his best quote too, because I don't even think he says Hulk smash in the movie, does he? In the MCU, right? That's like just like a comics Hulk thing, right?
I think he might say, or Edward Norton's
Oh,
Hulk
maybe
might
he
say
did. Okay.
smash
Yeah, but like
in
I think
his movie.
that's what the comic accurate like iconic Hulk quote is. But I think in the MCU, like
Right.
"I'm always angry" is like what made this Hulk iconic as well, which I think is really
Yeah.
amazing. All right, my number 3. This was not only a powerful quote in the movie, it became a nationwide phenomenon to where our future president of the United States has said this quote. White people who are trying to be kind but are a little bit of a cultural
Oh.
creation are saying this line. It's Wakanda Forever. Wakanda Forever is
Oh.
it's such an iconic line that they made it the subtitle of the second film. Yeah, and it also has a pose that you do with it. Like for
Yeah,
me,
yeah,
that
yeah.
is as iconic as you can get without being my top two. Wakanda Forever is one of the most iconic quotes to come out of the MCU, and it is MCU specific, which is why it's in my top three. Like I just think it's one of
Yeah.
those like very instantly you say it. I honestly think there's people who haven't seen the MCU but have just seen Black Panther. They know Wakanda Forever. They might not know
Oh,
Island of
yeah.
3000. You know what I mean? Like I think that's kind of where my justification of putting a top three was. But a really great quote, like great for like the Black experience. Like they've really kind of like taken that quote and like owned it, like they own the character in terms of like taking, seeing themselves on screen and really embracing that and celebrating that, which has been so awesome
Yeah.
to see. So it's become like a cultural movement, which I really love.
Damn, Dill. I think that if we were having a competition right now, you'd be winning. Like, if
Well,
there's
no,
gonna be a poll, if this is draft
no, there's
day,
no poll.
I'm losing this
No poll.
draft.
It's your birthday. I'm not gonna make you lose on your birthday, but it
Okay,
is
thank
no,
you.
I'm kidding. No, but like you're going for very iconic. I'm going for a little bit more basic, but I think like mine are iconic and
But they're
basic. Yours are
so
iconic, but
good.
also special. But they're all iconic, and
Yeah.
iconic means something different for every person. But Wakanda Forever, one of the most iconic. I definitely got all the Black voters for that one, Kels. I'm sorry.
It's
Unless you have
alright.
another quote, maybe that could.
Well,
Okay,
hold on
okay,
now, because I'm on my number 3 now, right?
okay.
I actually have a different quote from Black Panther,
There you
and
go.
this is my longest quote,
Okay,
and it
I'm
is a
getting ready to
quote that
start.
we've talked about ad
What are
nauseum
those?
on this. Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
it's one
make
of
it
those.
rain.
Oh, there's another quote from Black Panther. Do you have any more Black Panther quotes on your list?
No, there's so many good ones
Don't
though.
don't scare me like that, colonizer. That's not my quote, but
Let's see.
the
Maybe
quote,
a
my
Starbucks.
quote is one that we've talked about before on this podcast because we love this character and we love this send off for this character so much, and it is Killmonger's last line in the movie, just
Yeah,
bury
is
me
it?
in the ocean with my ancestors who jumped from the ships because they knew death was better than bondage.
One more
And
time. Say it one more time so I can actually type it. Just bury me in the oceans with my ancestors.
just bury me in the ocean with my ancestors who jumped from the ships because they knew death was better than bondage.
Yeah,
Ooh,
that's just like one of the
like,
both. Like that might be not the most recognizable line, but that is like by far one of the most amazingly written lines for sure.
yeah, that is like what a fucking mic drop that line is. And
You
like
just
it
won the Black voters back, Kels.
that's why I do it. That's why I do it,
There you
Dill.
go. There you go.
I can
Wow,
do
this
this
is
all day.
such a good quote. Such a good quote. Like the power
Ooh,
of that quote too is
gives
just
me
so.
chills every
I
time.
know. I know.
Yeah.
I
And
just
it
ate an
makes
ice
you
cream
like
cake for my
root for
sister's
him
birthday.
right at
I'm
the
chilly
end.
again. Yes. You feel bad, which you don't
Like you
normally do
want,
for
like
real. Yeah.
after he says that, and like you want him to live. Like you don't want him to make this sacrifice anymore. Like you're like, "Oh no, but there's potential here. Like T'Challa could show you the way to like greatness and goodness." And he's like, "No, I'm not going to be,
Yeah.
I'm not just going to be a puppet in your games." And
Oh, so good.
takes a knife out of his torso.
Could be
Damn.
number one. Could be number one. That's iconic. And again, it's iconic, especially in the context of that film. When you leave that film, that's a moment that sticks with you and a line that sticks with you. And even if you can't quote it word for word, it's like that quote that Killmonger says is so powerful. I
Mhm.
love it. Great. Um, number
But I feel
two.
like even
Yeah,
if
go ahead.
you can't quote it like word for word because it is so long, like you think of that, like it's definitely a line that you can just like think of. Like, oh,
Oh yeah,
Killmonger's like
absolutely.
line right when he dies, and people are
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, that. You know
hmm
what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think best line for sure. Like that is one of the best written lines of the MCU. I'll give you that. So yeah, it didn't make my list, but it could have if I'd thought of it. But yeah, great. And it's very long,
What's
but
your number?
it all holds weight. Okay, my number
Yeah.
two, super basic, but again, they named a show after this quote. I am Groot.
Okay, so I have a variation of this
You have
line.
We Are Groot. Is that your number
Yeah.
two or one?
That's my number 1.
All right, we'll see. What's your
We
number 2?
are Groot. Okay, my number 2 is from another TV show.
Oh,
It's from WandaVision,
okay.
and it is also a little nugget of knowledge
Yes.
that we get from a different character,
From
and it
Vision.
is from Vision,
Yeah.
and it is what is grief if not love persevering, which is
Um,
so
this was
beautiful.
actually the first quote after Avengers Assemble. This was the second quote I thought of. It's just I didn't
Hmm.
quote it perfectly word for word, and I looked it up. I'm like, you know what?
Okay.
I just my own criteria. I was like, for it to be
Yeah.
iconic to me, I was super stubborn because I also wanted to really like what are the most iconic quotes, and if I couldn't
No,
necessarily
I
get
love
it
it.
word for word, um, but yeah, I mean, amazing quote. That was like the quote when that episode came out. Everyone was like, "Whoa!" It's the same thing as a Killmonger quote. You're like, "Geez, that's great." You know.
So, what's your number 1, Dill?
I am Iron Man. That's like the one because here's the
Yes.
thing. It
Yep.
was said in the first film, and that is the moment where everyone was like, "Holy shit! This is why the MCU is different because now superheroes are known. Their identities are known. It is not a secret." Tony Stark said, "I
Yeah.
am Iron Man." That is something that had never been done before in a superhero movie, at least not a mainstream one like that. So
Mhm.
that's where I think a lot of people were like, "Whoa! Like this is game changing." But then it ends up being the final line before he saves the day.
Motherfucker.
So I just think it's like one of the most iconic lines. I think there's no other franchise it could be in. I am Iron Man. I don't know how many other times he says it. It might just be those two, but they are kind of the bookends of an entire like saga in a way.
Yeah.
If you were to end the MCU at Endgame, that would be the line that bookended the franchise. So, but I totally get you went very much more like iconic in terms of like just like excellently worded and like iconic in the moment and for the films they're in. I went more chalk
Mhm.
like who are the basic like people on the street who have only seen a few MCU movies? What could they quote? So we just took
Mhm.
it two different directions, but like I am Iron Man for me is most iconic, but
Yeah.
not a problem that you didn't put it on there
Damn.
because you highlighted so many good quotes.
That is the one that when you were like, "Oh, but the other ones I have are more iconic." I was like, "God damn, I don't have I Am Iron Man," which is like literally like the golden nugget.
It's
It
on our
is the
wheel.
definition of the MCU.
Yeah.
It's on our wheel, exactly. He does say it one other time in Iron Man 3, right at the
Ooh.
end of his little narration, where he's like, "You can take away my toys and you can take away this, but there's one thing you can't take away is I am Iron Man."
Yeah.
And then
That was
that's like the end of Iron Man 3. So he does
it.
say it 3 times, but still,
Yeah.
like that's how iconic it
Yeah.
is. Like,
But your number one and my number two was a variation of the same quote, which I think could also be one of the most iconic, if not the most iconic, which is mine
yeah,
was I am Groot, but yours is we are Groot. But yeah,
yeah,
Groot just it is one line that he says over and over and over again, so it is just
yeah,
iconic. Whatever variation, I think ours is the same quote, just like past tense versus pluralities and all that, but it's the same
yeah.
sentiment. It's just him that is an expression that anyone on the street could know. Even if you've never seen the movie, you probably still know that quote.
Right. I mean, this one was just so powerful for me because this was just another moment that like rocked my world in the
Mm,
worst way when he's about to sacrifice himself at the end of Guardians, where he makes the nests around all of the other Guardians, and he simply and Rocket is looking up with him with sadness in his eyes, going, "But no, you'll die." And
yeah,
he goes, "We are Groot," and I'm
yeah,
just like, ah, literally just twist the knife while you're at it. My only gripe, it's not gripe. My
gripe.
only gripe with this line though is that because he just changes the one word, "we are Groot," it implies that like he was speaking English the whole movie when in reality he was speaking Groot, which is I
Right.
am Groot.
Later on, when they like make the whole distinction in Guardians 3 of like we can understand him to the
Yeah.
outsiders, it just sounds like I am Groot. It makes that moment not actually make logistical sense.
Yeah.
But
But we forgive it. We
eh,
forgive it.
also that was a different Groot, so maybe it is like a thing where like that Groot just kind of knew how to like play with the emotions a bit and like could
Yeah.
speak English in that moment. But um yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know. A great list. I do have the recap here to
Go
recap it
ahead,
for you.
Dill.
My top 10. My number 10, Underoos. Number 9, On Your Left. Number 8, Why is Gamora? Number 7, I Love You 3000. Number 6, That's My Secret Captain. I'm Always Angry. Number 5, Avengers Assemble. Number 4, I Can Do This All Day. Number 3, Wakanda Forever. Number 2, I Am Groot. Number 1, I Am Iron Man. Kelsey's number 10,
Mm.
You Get Hurt, Hurt Them Back. If you get killed, walk it off. Number 9, I have nothing to prove to you. Number 8, for you, for all of us. Number 7, Mr. Stark, I don't feel so good. Number 6, he may have been your father, but he wasn't your daddy. And number 5, I love you 3000. Number 4, that's my secret captain, I'm always angry. Number 3, just bury me in the ocean with my ancestors who jumped from the ships because they knew death was better than bondage. Number 2, what is grief if not love? Persevering or perceiving? Persevering. I don't know why my phone did that. And then number 1, we are Groot. There you go. Our top 10s. What did we miss? What do you think the fans are going to get mad that we missed? Anything? I mean, mine are the first 10 that came to my brain. So
right.
I don't know if we're missing anything. Chess.
We talked about Avengers Assemble. We talked about I Can Do This All Day. I am Iron Man.
There's that like Yelena quote that people quote. Like,
I'm sure we're probably missing like an iconic Nick Fury quote somewhere. I just can't think of any.
Just at the end before he gets snapped away.
Maybe Tony going up to Thunderbolt Ross at the end of Incredible Hulk saying, I'm putting together a team.
Yeah, maybe. But again, Incredible Hulk.
Or maybe when the captain says
Puny God,
smash.
Maybe. He's a friend from
Puny
work.
God.
He's a friend from work.
Oh, he's a friend from work. Yeah. That's a great quote.
There's a lot of good ones. If we were to do like a top 50, like all these quotes would make it. But I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Like, what's the Yelena quote? That oh my God, da, 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 da. Like that quote was really iconic for a while when she's like eating the mac and cheese.
Oh, what? This is crazy.
Yeah,
that's like all I can.
That was a big soundbite on TikTok, but I'm trying to.
I also thought of one of the quotes that I was talking about. One of the moments that I considered for one of my funniest moments in the MCU is when she says, "Well, I doubt the God of Space needs to take an ibuprofen after a fight."
Yes, there you go. Yeah,
in Black Widow. So.
I was also thinking of it's so recent that I didn't want to put it, but X-Men 97. For me, my X-Men. The big reveal where it's Magneto saying it, and it's like, whoa, that was a great one. And also, what's the line? Remember this? Whoo! Where Gambit, when Gambit says, remember this, and then he,
yeah.
So good. Like, I think 97 has a lot of great quotes too.
Rhodey's boom. You looking for this?
Yes, of course.
Or I'm sure there's like an iconic Stan Lee moment.
Yeah, like, I mean, like I did think of a lot of them, like Excelsior, or like
yeah.
Or what's the other good one? I got a package for Tony Stank.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, like so many great great quotes. And then great power comes great responsibility was like the one I was like, if it counts, but I was like, I don't want to do that.
Marissa Tomei does say that. That's exactly
I just
what
forgot she did. Goes to show how much I like that movie. But yeah, I think
it's also it's hard because there's nowhere to rewatch that movie really conveniently right now because it's not on Disney Plus. So whenever I have to no, it's not yet because I haven't been rewatching it to either make trivia or study for trivia. So every time trivia, I'm like, fuck, No Way Home. There's no way to watch it. So
there's no way to watch. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm losing my mind. I was just gonna say, like, I just don't think it's one of the most iconic MCU quotes. I think it's iconic because of the Raimi movies,
Marvel.
not
Okay. The first quote that came to mind in the beginning of this episode, Jill, where you were like, Marvel or MCU? And I was like, why? Because Jill just wants to go pizza time.
Brian Nussbaum, shout out.
Oh, Pizza Papa always gets paid. Matt's probably yelling that at us now.
Yeah, Chad, you mean? Or Matt. They're both yelling at us. You said Matt.
No, I thought Matt. I said Matt, but I thought that's because Matt always says something about Pizza Papa in the Discord. But it could be both of them.
Well, because Chad is Pizza Papa. Anyway, shout out to them both. Both our boys. I'm trying to think. Any other quotes we missed? I mean, you'll tell us all in the comments what quotes we missed. I finally figured out how to do our Spotify and Anchor accounts, how to get it back. So all the episodes are now available. If you've been going months without listening to us, you are now able to do so again. And this episode will be airing Monday morning at 6 a.m. for you. I'm telling you right now, 6 a.m. is when you can listen to this on audio. So that is when we're going to aim to drop our audio podcast at 6 a.m. So you can get it bright and early for your morning commutes if you need it. I'm going to make that like a goal for the rest of the year, for the rest of our time. 6 a.m. on Mondays, unless we're recording it like live on Mondays, or if we're like doing a really late record on Sunday and we can't like get it all edited and stuff in time. I will always let you know, but like 6 a.m. on Mondays is going to be like our normal like drop for podcasts. So if you want to listen to us on your morning commutes or whatever, and you don't have the video availability, that will be available. So I'm going to strive to do that going forward because I really want to make sure the podcast is getting its listens as well as the videos. So, Kelsey, any last thoughts on this fun experiment? These quotes, D23, your birthday, anything else?
I did think of one other quote,
Okay.
and that's "Who the hell is Bucky?"
Yeah.
from Winter Soldier.
Yeah. Also,
But
the
other than that,
Thor quote when he sees the Guardians, "Who the hell are you guys?"
oh yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Again,
oh
see
yeah,
it.
I remember that moment from that was like one of the first like teaser trailers for
Yeah.
Infinity War, and that was
Yeah.
the only trailer of at all that I watched for Infinity War. So everything that happened in Infinity War was such a surprise for me.
Yeah.
You were there, you witnessed it.
I saw it all.
You witnessed my mental
I am the
breakdown.
Watcher.
Any other than that, you can follow me on Instagram, Kelsey A. Kilpatrick, or you can follow my TikTok at Kelsey A. Kilp, or you can follow me on Letterbox, also at Kelsey A. Kilp.
Absolutely. You can find me at Dylan_Randazzo at Twitter. You can find me at Dylan Randazzo 417 at TikTok. You can find me at the Dill Pickle Movie Network on YouTube if you're listening to podcasts. If you're not watching, if you are watching and you want to listen on podcasts, we have the podcast. We also have the Dill Pickle podcast. I'm doing the same thing I did for Anchor and Spotify for the Dill Pickle podcast as well. So there's still months of videos and audio that I still need to post for that, but that should be coming to you soon. Otherwise, thank you guys for being loyal. Thank you guys, and wish Kelsey a happy birthday in the comments. I'm losing my voice. I already lost my voice from Kelsey's amazing Extremo birthday weekend, but I'm losing it even more having talked now for an hour about this stuff after eating an ice cream cake for my other sister. So
Ooh, yummy.
I'm gonna call it quits. But anything else, Kels?
I can do this all day.